Ladies and gentlemen, reporting to you from the Unification Party headquarters, I'm Jason Rowe, and this is my co-host, Adrian Blizzard. And welcome to episode 7. I know we've had a lot of people clamoring for this episode. So here we are, we're coming at you. I'm sure you heard the news today that the automotive tariffs, the 25% that Trump is putting across the board, parts to follow in May, a lot of details which we won't get bogged down into. But I mean,
I've heard some stuff about it, but not too much. Not enough as I should. Like, it seems a
well,
lot of
that's
people
what
are
I
talking
do.
about it. Like, the only way I know about it, to between me and you, is I have put options on an American automotive car company called Carvana that sells used cars because I think it's a garbage fraud. But a lot of people on there are like, these tariffs are going to be great for used cars down here, and so they seem pretty bullish down from the Yankees that I see on the message boards about that stock. And obviously, the Canadians just aren't happy about it at all. I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I decided to do, sort of a deep dive in. So I'll kind of bring you up to speed if you'd like.
Nice.
I mean, there's some interesting. What I found more interesting than the automotive tariffs is in the investigating of the automotive tariffs, other side things that I never would have thought to even, we're not. Anyways, I'll just get to it and tell you about it. So originally, what I was going to be talking about was that I was watching a episode or listening to something on the CBC, and the CBC reporter was commenting on Trump talking about, which did make me laugh, Liberation Day. Have you heard the term Liberation Day? Trump has labeled April 2nd, when all the tariffs hit the entire world.
Oh, man.
He's labeled that day Liberation Day. And I did find it funny that the CBC commentator had to say the words Liberation Day for the day. So I'm gonna have some fun with that. So in honor of Liberation Day coming, so he essentially, the reporter was going on, and then Trump started talking about beautiful, clean coal. And at every juncture, the CBC reporters were getting more and more heated about what Trump was saying. But then what I thought was funny is at the end, is Trump spoke about, how, wind just doesn't cut it. And Germany was opening coal factories, and China was opening a coal factory a week. And wind was terrible, and killing the birds.
And the whales.
And then he went on about, and the whales, right. This is the funny part. So Trump kind of clumsily was talking about whales. And then I thought it was funny that two CBC commentators who I guess are not aware of the causation/correlation studies about whales and windmills. So their conclusion
he's retarded.
Was that he is mentally ill. His mind is deteriorating.
Shocker.
He's a madman. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and he has no idea what is going on in the world. That was their takeaway. So they're either willfully ignorant, but nobody could have acted that. So the only conclusion I can draw is that they're ignorant on the subject. And then their response with their pre-programmed thinking is to lash out at him about something that they don't understand. And even though he may have referred to it clumsily, I guess, he still knows about it. I just think that's kind of crazy that these guys who are sitting in seats, who are they're the top of their craft. Talking heads. And then they're going to criticize, because of something that they don't understand. So that started me thinking okay, Trump madman. We've talked about his madman theory before, but they just lean so heavily into it that I wanted to see okay, I wanted to look at both sides of the tariff equation. And then as I was looking into that, the automotive portion broke out. So this will kind of slide from one to the other. But so I wanted to look, okay, so what's Trump saying? What are people who like Trump saying? And they're touting the words $3 trillion in Like the United Arab Emirates has committed 1.4 trillion. Saudi Arabia 600 billion investment. Apple has a 500 billion-dollar investment. Nvidia 100 billion. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company 100 billion. SoftBank 100 billion. Johnson and Johnson 55 billion. Hyundai 20 billion. I heard a whole big thing on Rolls Royce coming over here doing, so whether it's 3 trillion or 1 trillion or 2.5 trillion or something, sure, Trump may be exaggerating, but it seems to be that there's been a whole lot of, reshoring or home shoring back to the United States, obviously to access that lucrative market. So, but then I was thinking, okay, so Trump's been in power for what, 3 months? How many of these were on the table or in the books ahead of time, and now they just suit his purpose? I did find out that the $20 billion Hyundai company that's going into Louisiana, they were trying to go there in 2019. The only reason I found that maybe they didn't go there in 2019 was COVID broke out shortly after. Was Biden's policies made it impossible for them to do it, or his lack of effort to get them to do it? Like, I don't know and couldn't find out. But even just that one of them. So, like, I want to give Trump some credit that there seems to be, obviously, people are taking what he has to say seriously. But some of these deals could have been in place, could have already been happening. Maybe he steered the ship. I would say this is like a half positive, if we believe Trump's plans that tariffs are going to bring back, jobs and manufacturing to. I wouldn't say this $3 trillion claim out of the gate is like, okay, rah rah sis boom bah, but it's definitely, it seems, as best as I can find out, that there's an obvious uptick in reshoring manufacturing to the United States.
It's certainly a step in the right direction at a bare minimum. And at this point in the term, like you said, it's been 2 months. So, okay. Now, obviously, he probably won't keep this pace up for but if he were, it would be like on a wild hypothetical world where maybe he keeps that pace of investment up like every 2 months for the next 4 years. Like, there's your middle class. There's
Well, definitely. I mean, these are big numbers. Like, I don't know what the United Arab Emirates is 1.4 trillion, but that buys a decent amount of economic stimulus. I would for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is you don't know how much of these dollars will actually realize. You also don't, I don't know. You don't know what they'll be spent on, but it's definitely promising, and public opinion will push
zero out of the water.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So then I was kind of just looking into this, like the tariffs, like, again, trying to look on it seems to me that I understand the US of A has their own opinion on tariffs. They're not talking about it the same fervor we are, because for the most part, they're the beneficiaries. You do hear, like I did hear, there was competing, like this one auto worker or something, they were saying it's pandemonium and that nothing's going to work. But then I also was listening to another guy, his name was Sean Fain. He's like the United Auto Workers president. And basically he was like absolutely loving these so you can essentially find Trump's tariffs, loving them. So you can essentially, if you want to go there, you can support either narrative like with ease. So I just find that.
Well, you mean either narrative Trump's a genius or Trump's a dummy?
Well, just the either or, yes, a negative or positive. What Trump's doing is a positive net effect in broad strokes, or what Trump is doing is the end of everything that's going to happen. Like the two extremes, right? Like, again, I'm pro Trump. I'm pro person who's trying to do what's best for his own country, who's not getting bogged down in climate hysteria, and is looking at, the best way to save the planet is to make the planet as rich as possible, because if people have money in their pockets, they don't throw their couch in the ditch, right? Like, and same thing for pouring your chemicals down the drain. If your kids are fed and you have a second vehicle, you drive your box of used paints to the chemical disposal, dump day, twice a year, because that's what wealth does. It's not, and those are the things that are going to matter, both individually and the same concept with companies. So, if you're in India and you have your sewer pipe goes right into the back river and you can't pay your staff and feed like you're just getting by, the $40,000 filter system is down the list of priorities. So we need people to get, so I'm back him on that. But my point being is I'm going out with a good intention, trying to find out, is this good? Is this bad? Is he crazy? Is this a sane plan? And even with, like, again, trying to be as unbiased as possible, it's like with ease, you can just feed any narrative you want. Like, it just, here, open mouth, in goes slop. Like, whatever you want, like, they'll give it to you. And nothing is straightforward. So I pity the fool who just tries to watch the news at night and then comes away. Like, you would have to be some sort of like tariff expert. And I bet you they can't even explain why this country has that tariff difference. And is it good? Is it bad? Is it this? And then we get these talking heads who don't understand the whales, creating a whole fear narrative of the madman who knows what's going to happen. And that passes for, like, and then we have our narrative here, like elbows up and Carney's gonna, like, UFC fight Trump, 100%. There's no question. So through all of that, I thought to myself, okay, so the sensible thing to do will be is get out of Canada because we're too involved. And then we look to, like, what's the rest of the world doing? And so there, I was reading a BBC article, and basically Germany has the same, states it will not give in to U.S. tariffs and calls for Europe to respond firmly. And then France vow to retaliate. Trump, everything he's doing, it's incoherent. It's a waste of time. Canada's response, it's a direct attack. China accuses the U.S. of violating international trade rules. And then as a result of all this, the car making stocks are declining globally, with General Motors 7%, Ford 2%. New car tariffs are coming in, then the parts. It's like pandemonium. This is what the rest of the world is talking about. So then I go do a flip side, and somebody's talking about how Audi, who does very little or to no manufacturing in the United States, is suffering some huge losses and taking a beating. BMW is complaining that, people are not going to be able to pay this 25% import tax. And then this person, I don't know these facts to be true, but what I thought was interesting is that there had been no announcement from Mercedes. And then on deeper investigation, Mercedes had already been convinced over the past to manufacture more here and actually are a net exporter of cars. So the cars in that you're buying, the Mercedes here in the United States or there in the United States, would be tariff exempt because they're manufactured in the United States. And so there seemed to be no call for that. Again, don't know if all those facts are true because nothing is possible to figure out if it is true. But I did think that that was kind of interesting. And then even the last, that last thing we were talking about, Rolls Royce, that had more to do with engine manufacturing for uh,
Planes?
planes, yeah, like military.
Yeah.
But, $20 billion by Hyundai and other things.
Well, there's a lot going on. Have you heard anything about the theory that basically Trump is giving the European nations cover to rearm and using him as the bad guy? Because, like, it kind of tricked the European populace into having a fever for it. Whereas, like, for like the last 50 years, like, if you were to say anything military spending, like, most European places would be like, ah, piss posh.
So let me get this straight. So you're saying there's a conspiracy theory out there
It's theory.
that,
I said theory.
yeah, no. So I'm not putting this on you. I just want to make sure I understand it. That Europe and Trump have colluded or at least the powers that be behind the scenes
Yeah, they let
have
Trump dump a
colluded to
bunch.
create this fiasco. Right, right. Okay.
Eh,
To rearm, to spend the $1 trillion they need to do that, a rearm
pull
or
their boots up in
European
NATO.
plan.
Yeah, it's like because you would have had so many, you would have had marches in the street, and now you got marches in the street with Ukrainian flags fighting with those same fervor, but for defense spending. They tricked the same people who normally would have been like tied to a tree or tied to a police car or something.
Well, it could be. I mean, I have been led to believe that there's no such thing. Like it literally does not exist. There's always influential seed money behind every protest,
For
everywhere, at
sure.
every time that there ever has been. And there's no such thing as just grassroots organic outrage. Doesn't exist.
Well,
So
yeah, I just think it would make sense because basically I could see them going to Trump as he was elected and being like, "Look, buddy, like we'd love to help you out and buy some more stuff because like there is French and British, and I'm pretty sure German armament companies. If I don't know about German, but I know French and England, and the Czech Republic makes a lot of guns. Like so, there's companies over there that would benefit from this, and it would be a good way of getting the people on the side to like switch the spending switch, flick it over, especially if Trump's gonna force them to pay. It's like, all right, we'll pay, but you got to help us run some cover because we're gonna have we're gonna be water canning people in the streets. If you could just be the
I
bad
think
guy.
I think I think that sounds like that's fun and all.
Well, it's happening.
What seems more, well, that may be a byproduct of another reality just because it fits. It's not necessarily the case,
Well,
but
even Keir Starmer,
but let's just look at the let's look at the facts. Let's just look at the facts we do have. You look at Peter Navarro, you have Robert Lightzinger, you have Howard Lutnick. We've all heard from all of them. We're going to shake up the global world order. We're going to renegotiate the new global world order. America has laid back on its haunches far too long and been too passive. And we're going to exert some of our military and economic strength to make things better in America. So that seems to be what is. And if you look at it through that lens and not the lens of hysteria or the hurt feelings of the people who no longer get the status quo that they would like, i.e., Canada, the rest of the world. So their hurt feelings lens, now you need to come up with some crazy other alternative. If you just look at it for what they're saying that it is,
well,
we want you to build stuff in America, period. Everything that happening makes sense. Now you could argue, oh, it doesn't make sense because Trump hasn't thought it through because the systems are so integrated that they can't in something and something. But you can certainly hit it with the sledgehammer and say, you know what? Boom, this amount of tariffs on your cars, right? Boom. He immediately has your attention. He has to do it through this. If he tried to do it through Congress or implement it over like 20 years, like, well, we'll slowly reshore manufacturing back here. Every company in the world would know it would get bogged down. It would get changed. The rules would change. Wouldn't have to do it as fast. New government in Canada, this, something that. So he comes out and he says, boom, do I have your attention? You need to start making things here. So here's a really scary thing that I just said. And now, who's going to start making things here? Like the Japanese had a very great response. They said, we build all kinds of stuff in the United States. We have a lot of high paid workers. They were going on about, and we are going to but respectfully, and we're going to remind Trump of that, right? And so Trump gets the whole world, like I just went through the BBC article, all the major world leaders. He says one thing, tweet, executive order, boom, and the entire world drops everything they're doing to respond to it. So how is that madness, or how is that crazy? That's like, now they're negotiating to how little doing. They immediately go from like people that wouldn't have done anything because they haven't done anything significantly in the last number of years, right? They haven't done anything. And now all of a sudden they're immediately negotiating, even though out front they're beating their chest saying like, oh, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. But behind closed doors, all of them are immediately like, okay, how much money are we going to have to spend there? And then they're going to spend some amount.
No,
Period.
and that's like
So
to the point of the CBC reporters just going off with their hubris of like, obviously he's dumb. Whales don't go near windmills. Like,
whales, yeah, he's talking about whales.
it's
Ugh.
what I would say to that though. Unfortunately, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, like there is an echo chamber, and like that slop of like Trump dumb, people like it. Like it reaffirms what they've been thinking for the last 8 years. Like,
I mean, and I get it. Like I don't get
and
the
it's made the reporters
dumbness
lazy
part.
because that's all they got to say, and they're like done.
Absolutely.
Article done. That was some good reporting we just did there, Dan. Yeah, like Trump bad.
We got him. We got him good. No, I don't understand how. Like, I mean, I do understand why Canada would react the way that it's reacting. Like, I get it.
Absolutely.
Because I get that they should be terrified.
Yeah.
But
upset.
My complaint, sure.
Yeah.
But for one, maybe we shouldn't have got in this position, but that we won't look back. Easy to throw cast aspersions on that. But I just don't see the dialogue that they're using. The tactic that they're using is going to get them to where they want to go. Like, we've got to where we're at. Okay. Oh, well.
Now let's play ball.
Maybe now let's play ball. Okay. So what do we need to do? So, for instance, earlier today on the same topic, our buddy there, Dougie Ford, he came out of the gate saying like, we're going to make the Americans hurt and blah, blah, blah. He went again right away to that same sort of bluster. Yeah. But then he walked it back a little later, and apparently he'd had a phone call, and all of a sudden already, like, the day's not even over. And it's already, he was saying like, well, a lot of the cars, if there's more than 50% of the parts come from America, then maybe the tariff on that car will only be 12.5%. And this was what he was hearing, but Robert Lutnick couldn't be sure of anything. But there was like all this other stuff, like it's comical because it seems to me that, again, trying to be like an objective observer, just trying to question everything about myself in this. If you just look at it for what more or less everyone is saying that it is, it all makes sense. And tariffs are coming, and they're going to be a weapon for 4 years, that's for sure. And so for every time someone in the news says, I don't know what's happening, blah, blah, they're either lying to themselves or they're lying to us, because it's clear as day that this is what's happening. And I don't understand how. I look for that opinion. The opinion that I'm giving right now, I look for it espoused as clearly as I'm saying it. That tariffs are coming, period. No, I don't need to talk anymore. I don't hear it anywhere. It's
like it's like Canada was a person with its house burning down. The person's just been running around their house burning down for 3 weeks. Like, I guess it sucks. Your house is burning down. That sucks. But like you gotta move forward. Like, you gotta take another step.
Yeah.
Like, fire back.
Yeah.
Like,
we agree. Fire back.
Yeah. And I think what it is too, like, it's what I think what it really boils down to is like, with the difference with what America's up to right now, it totally throws the World Trade Organization and everything off balance, for sure. And it especially overturns the apple cart that is the Canadian bureaucracy and economic infrastructure, because we are so dependent and intertwined. And I think in a country like Canada that has so much red tape, you look at this situation and, like, quite frankly, the issue, you can either sit here for 4 years and be confused and pray that the next guy that comes in, if it's a Democrat, pulls them back, which is, you can't do that. That's not cool. That's not smart. Or you could basically kind of mimic them And unfortunately, I think in order for the Canadian government to like mimic that, or the Canadian economy or whatever, it, you'd have to get rid of some of that government, and which would be like some of those subsidies to the media, some of that, some of this, and like a lot of our overhead, which is pretty fat. And it's kind of like they don't want to do that. So they're like, okay, well, what's the other thing?
No,
What's the other thing we
that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
That's what it seems
Well,
like the answer is. Would you not agree? Would be to mimic them? Like,
make an example
like
of
okay,
what
well,
you
we
say.
want Canadian manufacturing to grow now. We want to grow Canadian manufacturing, and like we'll take the 75% tariff on this because you're gonna be buying this, and we'll get the money back on that, and like fight them with business and like making better products and so forth. Which
But do we have? I mean, we don't. Do we have a large enough market to be able to pull it off? Like,
with
I mean,
everything, no,
that's.
but you are right. Yeah, it's but still, what would you do then? What would be the if it's not mimic and if it's not panic for 4 years? What would be a better way to
Well, I
maybe
mean, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of our. Like, I know Doug. The whole point of our party is is one of unification. I mean, the only like we don't we don't really have an option. It's like we could make like like I just picture if Canada tried to make everything for itself and return manufacturing for our small market. I just picture like everybody wearing like Canadian made blue jeans. It's like
no,
they're
we don't have a lot of
they're all
people.
one
We
size.
don't have a
Yeah,
lot of
they're all
people,
size
and the
36.
modern
Yeah,
day world has a lot of nice
yeah,
accoutrements
man.
that we
How
have
can
become accustomed to.
it's impossible for that to happen. So it's like the leader of the pack is right beside us, and we have to. And I get, and I guess people don't like to say it, and I don't want to use like, I mean, even in friendships or relationships, there can be a dominant partner, they both can be valued, but everybody from the outside looking in knows there's a dominant partner
And
who
sometimes
maybe
people are
brings
give more
more
than
in
the
some
other, and
regard.
vice. Yeah, yeah, exactly. The balance
Yeah,
might
yeah,
not always be
and
equal.
right, and that's just life. And this is one of those situations for us. And our only solution is to
Unify. I agree with you.
you
Yeah,
know
you're right. And then
well, I don't mean, again, and I don't mean unify in the sense that, oh, I'm American now and we're the 51st state, but we definitely need to unify our economies, right? And we can maintain whatever other things that matter to Canadians to maintain, and that can be negotiated. But if we're not going to the, like, I would much rather see, let me play two fast scenarios just for fun. Let me look down the road 5 years. So 5 years from now, down the road, we've been elbows up for 5 years, and our GDP has dropped to this and something that, and we're in a lot of trouble. And then we decide, oh, okay, JD Vance or whoever's next in the line, we're now want to talk to you about some things, and then we're weak.
yeah,
Right now we're not, like, I mean, we are weak, but we're not
desperate.
we can recover.
We're, yeah.
We can recover from our weakness with a few policy changes. Like, I love that Pierre was talking about shovel ready development sites. Did you hear
Oh
that term?
yeah.
Like, I just love. I don't even have to read more. I get what that means. Like, I want to dig things. Well, we've got a site. Here you go. And that's great. Like, those kinds of things could transform it dramatically. And Kevin O'Leary's idea of like making a contract with the tar sands in Alberta, like America, contract for 50 years, buys it all. Like, if we went to the States with like a like a basket of, oh, you're worried about rare earth minerals? Psh, you're worried about northern sovereignty? Okay, cool. Well, maybe, you be the military. We'll have five branches of the military. We'll have the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and we'll have like the Canadian North Coast Guard or something. And we become experts in like everything Canada's defense from the north down.
Everything polar. Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't go as much over to the desert or whatever. Like, there could be some cool things, like with cool imaginations that come up with, and we could go and, hey, look at all this, and then all of a sudden we've got this. Like, we talk about, economies roaring at 3% GDP. Can you imagine if like Carney quit bitching about how scary Trump is, and then decided to like use all his super smarts and his knowledge about the energy industry and like turned him loose with, I'm sure, his more than business capabilities as a collaborator.
Treat
Like
the country
I
like
can't
he
I
treated his wallet. Just
yeah, I
did
couldn't even
well.
imagine what could be accomplished. Like, could you imagine? Like
I
it
agree.
would be insane.
No, I talk about prosperity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
no,
want UBI? That's how you pay for UBI. I mean, I don't want UBI, but that's the type of prosperity that would pay for it.
yeah. If you want social programs, you need a tax base. You also need to have a closed
Yeah.
door ish. In order to give the same cool stuff to everybody, you can't just be giving it to everybody who walks in. You
Well,
know,
yeah, but that's why we limit it to North America,
well,
you know,
that's
a
I'm
North
just saying. Yeah,
American Union.
no, I like that little picture you painted there for sure. I mean,
Yeah, why not?
well, and that's to say, like, even if we weren't to do like the unification economically right away, an attempt to mimic, and like you said, like, screw all that. Like, honestly, you brought up a really good point. That's the sad, real shame with Mark Carney, is like, this man is capable. This man knows like world energy markets, and it's just like, but like, why do you get to be a capitalist in Brazil and the UAE, but you have to be a socialist back when you're here? Like, why can't we be free market loving, like resource rich, hardworking people too?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, or at least a chance at it.
Yeah. But he's going to keep talking about Trump because it's the only thing that's going to get him elected is the anger for Trump. Because the more it seems to be, the more people are looking at
Well, we'll
Carney like
see. I don't.
before.
Again, I tried to look today to see, if that's slipping. But the moment you type in is Mark Carney slipping in the polls, blah, blah, blah. Like, yes, he is. It was he's the devil. He's this. And then if you go the other way, is Pierre Polyev like gaining? Yeah, absolutely. Like Mark Carney's a wash. It's like zero chance. Like it's. And again, everybody will say, "Oh, you have to trust your news sources, or you have to like do your." But then they don't realize there are no trustworthy news sources. Like that's not a thing that's real. So we have to do our best to wade through the muck and mire to try to find the little nuggets of what might be truth. And I would say, if I have to say anything, which I've said before, is exactly Canada, rest of the world, 3 weeks after the fact, stop running around your house that your house is on fire and start putting a concrete action plan together about what you do moving forward, assuming the full barrage of tariffs are coming. And I don't mean what you do to reciprocate, to try to alleviate those tariffs.
And then to use the
What
analogy going, the remedy might be a tent in the backyard for a month and not the Hilton Holiday Inn with the little bit of money on your credit card you have left while you're waiting to
might
figure
be,
out, right? Like that,
yeah.
because that also seemed like to be the remedy. You heard right away, like provinces have money set aside to fight this, and you're like, last I checked, we were broke. Last I checked, we've been broke since before I was born. But
Yeah.
like,
But there's money set
we
aside
got
for
money set
sure.
aside to fight this.
Yeah.
Hope your house
I don't
doesn't
know.
go up.
But what do you got to tell? What are you bringing to the table
This week's
today? What are
topic
you
for
going to,
me, I was interested in hearing about the revival of the pipeline getting a little bit of love lately with this new anti-Trump fervor and tariff talk. I was wanted to do a little bit of digging into Quebec and its history towards pipeline because they seem to be getting a lot of press. It seems to be, you see, Quebec doesn't like pipelines, so pipelines don't go through Quebec, and ergo, no energy's pipeline. I'm sure you've seen this type of talk in the news, my friend.
yeah, that would be my understanding. I would, if anybody said, oh, why don't you build more pipelines in Canada up until what you're about to tell me, my statement will have been Quebec.
Yeah.
And then maybe pushed a little bit more, I would say some Indians that live in Quebec.
Now that's very true. Yeah, that's a big part of it. So a lot of the opposition is native groups, environmentalist groups, and the native groups have they're pretty influential in both British Columbia and Quebec when it comes to like the opposition movement. They're definitely integral parts of that. And I will say I tried to step outside of the echo chamber and see what they like. Why? Like, okay, like, do you have reasonable grounds to have like a dispute? So the history of Quebec with pipelines, it actually goes back to 1976. There's actually, I don't know if you know this, but there's a pipeline from Sarnia, Ontario, on the American border there with Michigan, all the way to Montreal. That's been active since 1976. Are you aware of this? Did you know about this? I thought I've heard of it.
Not particularly, no.
I actually had a friend I actually called today because he actually works in Sarnia at the plant for Suncor, who operates the pipeline. And he actually didn't give me too much information about it, but it was nice to catch up with him and continue digging. But so essentially, like that's the beginning of Quebec and pipelines. Is like this pipeline that's been operating since 1976, and basically up until 1990, it was shipping crude from Alberta and some from America to Montreal because there's a refinery in Montreal. I didn't know about that either.
No.
Which I thought was interesting. And there was a bit of an issue in 1999 there when they wanted to when they started shipping Saudi oil and other countries' oil that was cheaper than a Canadian oil back the other way, like from Montreal to Sarnia, so it could go out west and all around Ontario. So, and then the native and the environmentalists put up a big stink back in the early 2010s when they wanted to shift the flow back. So Alberta bitumen going back through the pipe to Montreal, and they actually had. I thought it was reasonable. Their big thing was like essentially like bitumen is a lot. It's kind of like they call it liquid sandpaper. Like it's pretty rough. So it would be a lot different than say refined oil from Saudi Arabia coming through than like that. So like, and they're like, if this old pipe breaks, it goes through like 800 different like estuaries and waterways and many different small towns in Ontario and Quebec. So like, I was like, okay, you're not just mad for the sake of mad. Like there is an actual, like, that sounds reasonable. Like bitumen isn't the same as oil. And like the Suncor pipelines have failed testing in the past. Like in 2013, it was something like 107 of 25 failed this like inspection by like this citizen action group. So it's like it's one of those subjects, kind of like you were saying, where there really is the two extremes on it, and those are the ones that you can get information from, but it's very hard to find that middle ground on, right? Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't know exactly what you're saying.
So following that, so basically there was another pipeline. It was, the project was called GNL Quebec, or Sanguinet Energy, and it was basically a pipeline that was supposed to run from Ontario, Madison, I believe, Matston, just outside of Timmins, up just north of Quebec City to a place called Sanguinet, Quebec. And it was for liquid natural gas. That's what it was supposed to do. Now, it got vetoed a long time ago, like back in 2021. So not that long ago, but and again, similar reasons. Like they're like the natives were upset about the stuff going through their land. And you know what? That the natives subject in Canada is always been a touchy subject, no matter what the area of discussion is. So that's just is what it is. And the issue with this one, that it's kind of weird too, because you look into like the economic benefits and you're thinking about like, why would they, like there's got to be a safe way to do it. But then when you kind of look a little bit deeper, before I get into Energy East, you look at the equalization payments. And the way the equalization payments work for Quebec, basically it's like hydroelectric dams is how Quebec gets most of their energy. And they actually subsidize the power for Quebecers. So the Quebecers pay like a subsidized rate for their power, and then they typically sell the rest off to the states. But the way that the equalization payments, are you familiar with equalization payments in Canada?
I am.
Okay. So, but the way
But tell our audience.
well, okay, essentially, equalization payments are a fiscal tally of like the have provinces to the have not provinces to kind of like even it all out after and like I can't really get too much more into depth in that because that really wasn't what I went into today. But essentially, like Alberta's oil is the number one source for equalization payments. Like the royalties on the oil, hands down. Like in 2023 to 2024, equalization payments in total
So don't
were
worry about the numbers. You're making it too complicated. If
well,
you're watching, you don't understand what it is you have 5 kids. They all have different amount of money. Somebody makes this much money and somebody makes that much money, but you take some from some and some to the other, so they all have the same amount of money in their bank account, so they can all live roughly the same
right, right,
lifestyle.
okay,
There it is. Sorry, go ahead.
and essentially the way that hydroelectricity is valued is different than oil. So Quebec kind of gets a pass where they have this like great energy source, this great power source, and this great financial contributor, but it kind of is a gray area when it comes for the calculation for equalization payments. So it kind of makes Quebec, by the way the calculation is done, they get the status of a have-not province. Meanwhile, like it's super murky and gray. So it's like you get subsidized power for the people of the province, and like it's a crown corporation, so like the profits are like a dividend back to the province, so like that gets taxed differently too than the oil royalties. So it Alberta more or less really gets the shaft, and basically out of the 2024 year, $25 billion was the total amount of equalization payments. Quebec got 13.7 billion of those payments, right?
Yeah.
So if the hydroelectricity was marked differently, there could be a case to be made that they're getting away with a pretty good deal for Quebec right now and at the cost of Alberta. But the reason I say all that is because so when they canceled the LNG pipeline in Saint-Gaudin, Quebec, it was if that project profited say $1 billion a year for the province, for the coffers of the province, that would actually cost Quebec half of that. So if it was $1 billion a year in taxes, they would lose $500 million in equalization. So they're almost like incentivized
There's an incentive, yeah.
to not
That's interesting.
do it. Yeah. Well, Quebec also in 2022 banned fossil fuel exploration. So they're pretty. I would say that Quebec leads the charge. Maybe BC and Quebec are tied for fossil fuel opposition in Canada because yeah.
So would you say that we don't worry about BC, but we'll say Quebec when you're looking, would you say that the opposition is, if it was it's going to be some of everything I'm going to say, but what's the majority? Is it political bargaining chip or legitimate or a legitimate environmental concern?
I think like anything, it's usually it's political bargaining chip, right? Like but also the way the cards are stacked up for Quebec right now, the incentive isn't really that much there as much as it would present itself at first glance. And then you throw in like, because like if the jobs were there, like I'm sure there's a way to get more native acceptance of the plans. Like I know in Northern Ontario with the mines, the mines work pretty intertwined with the communities, with the chiefs and the tribes, try and make sure like a lot of the people there have jobs and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's a will, there's a way. And the thing with this one too is there was something to do with like the whales. Actually, whales came up. So there's a port at the tip where they wanted to build this deep sea port, and environmentalists were like, yeah, it's bad for the whales where the humpbacks come, and we're trying to really help them out. So I thought it was kind of funny you mentioned the whales earlier because I knew I was going to be briefly touching on whales as well. So then all that to go back to the Energy East pipeline that now has like the most support in Quebec and in Canada ever, more or less, ever since the cold realities of Trump's new game. So similar to those companies you mentioned now showing up and putting their money where their mouth is in the States, a lot of Canadians are actually kind of getting more favorable to like economic expansion in certain ways. So that's maybe not a bad thing, but
it's a great thing.
It's not. So now the thing with the Energy East, so essentially there's a natural gas pipeline that is already being used right now. So the whole point of it is they want to expand a little bit of pipe from Alberta and Saskatchewan, and then they want to expand a whole bunch of it through Quebec and then down to St. John, New Brunswick. So their ports, the shipping ports from the St. Lawrence would take some. of the oil, as well as the refineries in St. John would take some of the oil. Um, and similar to the same reasons that people were against the GNL Quebec, a lot of the same reasons people have for the Energy East one. And even a little bit different though too, because GNL Quebec that they were still against, that would have been all new pipeline and stuff like that. This one, they're using an old pipeline that's already there for the majority of it. Now that part of the pipeline isn't in Quebec. That would be running through Ontario, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. That's already there. They're using that for LNG. It would be repurposed for the oil. So, I mean, if there was ever a time that that pipeline would get approved, it would be now. But also too, aside from the people that are finally on board, which seem to be the biggest obstacle in Canada getting pipelines done, is the people. Is like we've also kind of scared off a lot of companies with what happened with Kinder Morgan, and we blew like we took that pipeline over and we spent 6 times what we were supposed to spend. Like it was just a mess. And like Enbridge and Southbow, who are two pipeline companies, like they do other energy, they're energy companies. They both said they don't want anything to do with the pipeline.
I would imagine that's across the board that we are. I mean, I'm not suggesting that America across the board is way better. I don't know. I'm sure state to state, but I would imagine
Business friendly, you mean?
business friendly. Exactly. Yeah, I'm sure.
They
That's
definitely
all we
are.
hear in the news is Canada stymied this 17 years. You don't even have a shovel in the ground. Environmental this
18
and
years to get a mine
some.
approved in our country on
Yeah,
average. Wild.
yeah. So Quebec potentially, because of nationalism, might allow a pipeline,
Yeah, but it seems like we've scared. Like I just said to you, like
but no one will build it.
the sentiment is there
Even
now.
if right,
And,
but no one will come and build it.
yeah, all the companies are like they've all been jerked around by our government, and just don't want to. Especially when you think about it, this just hit me too. Especially when you got a hot hand at the clickety clack down south, who's like just throwing opportunities out left and right. Why are you wasting any time up here? Like,
Yeah, yeah. You know, you got a hot hand downtown. Yeah, downtown. Just
we're
deals.
like
You want to
we're
we?
business friendly for 2 weeks, and you're gonna like start
Yeah,
throwing $20 billion.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
and that's the part.
yeah. And Trump. The next step for Trump is he'll be writing executive orders, forcing them to build pipelines at top dollar.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing that'll happen.
Now, one of the cases, though, another reason people don't like pipelines is they think that, oh, like this natural gas, fossil fuel stuff, this is Chinese checkers. Like we're not going to be using that much in the future. Don't even worry about it. It's just a waste. And I mean,
Right, right.
you
We're days away from the new
getting
thing
off
that's
of
going to
it,
solve it.
and you could they
Yeah.
and then you look at even if you just look at coal, like they said that about coal, and like those nations are using more coal than ever. And I mean, now the
I
other
talked about that earlier. Clean, beautiful coal.
oh,
Trump wants to fire it up again. Clean, beautiful coal.
another thing that kind of seems like unfair with the environmentalists though towards it is like they calculate what okay because like you had to like show how much emissions this whole thing was going to be like is it because Quebec really cares about greenhouse gas emissions and they really care about their hitting the Paris Climate Accord and basically like the environmentalists were calculating like all the oil sands in Alberta into their calculations and like but like they weren't including like the third world not using coal and now using LNG and stuff like that. So it's cheeky math. Like even with that greenhouse gas stuff, if you want to kind of get behind it and be like, I love the environment, it's like it's just another it's just another mafia by a different name.
Absolutely.
Look what they're doing to poor Tesla. He said something wrong and like light
Oh,
those batteries on fire.
you reminded me of something. Check this
Go
out.
on.
So I queried the Perplexity and I said, is there any maker model that is 100% assembled anything in America
Tesla's all.
car
Tesla's
wise? And
100%.
they're like, no. They're like, no, 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 no. Which wait, let me get there.
Sorry.
No, 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 no. This, that. Uh, I had to ask in 100 different ways. Parts from here to there, assembled, blah blah. The only car company, 100% everything, just Tesla.
Yeah.
So they're the only ones who are building it all, and then the opposition is burning them to the ground. Like I can't even.
Lee.
It doesn't even make sense. Yeah,
It,
it's same. But forget that part. That's the interesting side note. What was interesting is that the the AI says like more or less it's to decouple these industries is like impossible. Like it's just not going to happen. And it would take, but then when pushed further, like they said, like obviously it's possible. Anything can be done, right? Like of course, but it's just because there's such a hysteria that the costs are going to be so astronomical that it doesn't, even the AI doesn't want to consider it. But this was hilarious to me. That huge article that I was quoted a lot of the things to you from about, I had the AI summarize it into bullet points, and then I had it summarize in a final bullet point. And I just want to read you that bullet point, okay? So the International Monetary Fund warns of potential, this is all related to Trump's tariffs, warns of potential, in quotes, significant adverse effects, end quote, on Canada and Mexico's economic outlook. So it didn't seem to throw the USA in there with its final
he's crazy.
assessing of
He's
all the,
crazy.
yeah, despite all this craziness and everything, the AI and the 3 or 4 articles that I compiled all this information from finalized in a summary point. It's that Canada and Mexico will be facing some significant adverse
What
effects.
it boils down to with the media and everything, nationalism has become a dirty word for like the better part of 60 years. And it really isn't, because like it has, you can think of it, what it means, whatever it wants, but it means to like value your country, which doesn't mean like value your country means I get to kick everybody. Like that's not what that. No, no, no. It just means take care of yourself. And the whole world order has kind of gone the way of globalization, and the fact that Trump's like turning the tide on that, it's definitely upsetting a lot of people, and a lot of people who like the globalization don't see the values of national values. And I could see it as a Canadian, it being, all of a sudden they found it, but like we were saying with like trying to mimic them, like you're right, like we're not America. America is a special case, and we would be privileged and blessed to become subjects of the American government. Like full stop.
I wouldn't go that far, but
Consider,
I I wouldn't go that far.
consider
But
the
I
base
would
we're
go as
on.
far as to say I would go as far to say that instead of fighting, collaborating, we
Well put.
everybody could get what they wanted.
Yeah, agreed.
And yeah, and Canada could stay Canada, but we could be an economic, environmental, not environmental, economic.
Support system to the juggernaut that is America.
Absolutely. What
Like,
do you need there, buddy? Who ruled Bartertown, right?
yeah, you got our
It was,
back.
yeah.
Like you got, and we got yours. Like let's work together. And yeah, there's a way. There's a way to do it. And yeah, like the fighting full, like no matter what form it takes, whether it's diplomatic or you know kinetic warfare, neither.
That's not gonna.
Not, I
That's
know,
not
no,
gonna
but
happen.
none of it's good. There's nothing economic fighting. None of it's helps anybody. If anybody gains from it, it's America because they can withstand it. So they're going to come out with
Yeah,
less of a
absolutely.
bruise.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, according to the IMF, it's not a significant adverse effect on the U.S. of A. It's on Canada and Mexico's economic outlook.
I almost
So
take that as a threat. The International Monetary Fund, like, what are you guys implying? Like, but it's not even like I don't mean I don't like those guys, but like I can't blame them saying that. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Hopefully, we can get on board and take like
so
benefit
what's
from this.
so without if Quebec would never want to give up their bargaining chip of not allowing these pipelines through, what's the alternative? I mean, we have to send it south. We can't send it through
Play
BC to
nice
the
with America.
coast.
Just play nice with America, because that's the way all the infrastructure is set up. Like, you either play nice with America or build a pipeline, and even then you should still play nice with America. Um, I mean, I think, like, the issue, like I said, the issue for the last 20 years on the subject of pipeline has been the populist will against it. And now the issue is that, like, our country's forgot what capitalism is. In turn, the corporations haven't, and are terrified of putting $1 in here. And I'm terrified because there's nothing our government in the past has loved more than to hand out $1 million contracts to big companies. So I don't want them buying another pipeline either. I don't think that's the remedy. Like the federal government doing it, that would, oof, oh my God, can you imagine?
No, so pipelines are out in the foreseeable future. So much like Trump would take forever for him to create only manufactured in United States automobiles, only 100%. That would be hard. Take time. Just like us, for us to do something pipeline again, it would all take time. So in the meantime, it's probably just going to be business as usual for both,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Quebec is going to complain. We're going to ship some oil from Alberta down to the refineries south. We are going to pay some amount of tariffs on Canadian made cars or majority Canadian made parts. Slowly, they will streamline more manufacturing in the United States and less in Canada. Like the long term bet is we might be okay, but we're the ones who are going to feel it.
I don't see how we're going to be okay because, you know,
No, you're right. We could be okay, but yes, on present trajectory with the negotiating styles of Carney, bad news.
if Mr. Polyev won, I think there's a chance that we could turn the ship. But will it be in time? No.
Well,
Like the ship is so, like, we
no,
can't.
but I think the ship. No, you're right. Let's play with that for a second. So, if Polyev were to get, I'm not going to say like a slaughter, but like, well, let's say a mandate. People can make up in their minds what that means
Majority
in this
government,
day and age.
not a minority.
Gets a majority. Yeah, he gets a majority
A
government.
thin majority, but a majority. Okay, yeah.
He gets a majority, and I think then he could probably be more classically conservative than he's willing to say out loud right now. Which, if he was, then that kind of thinking would jive with Trump's thinking, and then they could probably be a lot more pleasant conversations and a lot more open to
Exceptions.
sharing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably,
Tit for
but
tat. We'll do this, you do that. Like, we'll take. How about we take care of that Arctic there, Donnie? Maybe you can make some of these tariffs go away if we double the size of our navy. How's that sound? Like,
yeah, I mean, it seems to me, again, if you get rid of the madman theory and he's stupid and he's this, and you just look at what more or less the strategy that seems to be openly on display, at least it seems obvious to me, that
grow American manufacturing.
yeah,
What do I got to do?
yeah,
My hook or my
and
crook?
yeah, by hook or by crook, and how can we help you do that and it be good for us
Yeah.
too?
How do we get some butter on our bread? We don't need all the butter. You're right. That 300%. That's a little high. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah,
That's the
well, we
interesting one.
determined that was.
Let's say that did happen. Brain experiment. We're at that point. Like, it's 6 weeks of Pierre, and that talk is happening. Like, the Canadian dairy mafia is just such a known power broker in Canadian politics. It'd be interesting to.
We should save the dairy cartel
For sure. But
for another
that would be interesting
episode.
to see how they react. Like, would the government fold on them, but I don't know. Yeah, okay. Well, you're right. I think that about does it for this episode. I mean, good little pontificating
Absolutely.
at the end, and good chat all the way through. Hope you know a little bit more about pipelines now than you did before you watched it, and Trump
Well, I did. I
tariff.
thought that whole the part of the bitumen going back, because that was interesting. And
It's sensible. It's
I mean,
like
I get.
they're not just being unreasonable. They actually had a logic.
Well, we'll see. So, I mean, bottom line is nothing is going to change, even with this new rah rah rah. No one's starting to dig tomorrow for the new pipeline going through
I mean,
northern Quebec.
maybe Carney's got a plan where he's going to print enough Canadian money that he can buy a majority stake in like Royal Dutch Shell for the government of Canada, and then like force through some fascistic corporate. Like, yeah, exactly. The businesses are too scared, even if they were allowed to dig. They're shook. They're like a shattered spouse who's just like, I don't know if you're going to start screaming again. Anyways,
So
yes.
really, the issue that's the most interesting point that I think that you raised, is that the fact is whether we even want to or not go through all those hurdles. Best case scenario, finding someone who with the capability and experience to, they've all been burned, so they're like, psh, all right,
How to get him?
well, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Good
All
talking
right,
with
well, I'll
you.
see you soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye bye, everyone. That was a thumbs, not that was a piece, not a.